It's a small.
All right, welcome everyone to the special meeting this February 15th, 6 p.m. I'll call the meeting to order. We've got a quorum present. We have Councillor Abbott on Zoom, and the other councillors are here present. So with that, we'll move forward. I guess number 2 item is adoption of the agenda. And just to give a little background, I will be proposing to amend the agenda based on conversations that I had back in November and again this afternoon with the Ministry of Municipal Affairs. So the current status as was enacted, I believe, January 31st, we had the appointment of the Chief Election Officer. So Mr. Miller assumed that role on February 7th on Mr. Tobin's resignation. But with the conversations with the Ministry of Municipal Affairs, and because of the workload that Mr. Miller has and the workload on our staff, we reached out. Municipal Affairs have offered to provide assistance during this election period. In fact, they've even offered to pay for that representation. So that's something that's very attractive for the village. We also have an alternative. Sorry, I'll just finish off and then you can.
Should we adopt the agenda before we do anything else, I think?
Yeah, I just wanted to give a little background on why we were, what we were going to adopt.
We should procedurally probably adopt the agenda first.
Adopt the agenda first, and then you can make amendments. If you want to make amendments after.
All right, adoption of the agenda.
So moved.
Okay.
Yeah, some discussion on that, perhaps?
Second.
No, so what we just need to do, and then you can go back to your report, Ken.
Okay.
We just have some housekeeping stuff to do first. So we need to adopt the agenda, and then first and second it, and then
I moved it, yeah.
Discussion to amend it.
Okay, second on the agenda. Marcus, second.
Yeah, I'd like to have some discussion.
Yeah, but now we're into the discussion.
So Marcus, we'll mark him down a second.
Yeah.
No, I want to have some discussion as
You have to have
the
a
agenda
discussion
first.
of the agenda
Yeah.
first.
So question I'd have is, why is the agenda set up such that we're proposing to take resolutions to specific appointments and then moving into closed to discuss those appointments? That doesn't seem to make any sense to me. We might as well do it all in the open.
I agree, but just background, by way of background.
I can answer that question because I'm the one that did the agenda.
No, but I wouldn't mind stepping in because the conversations I had this afternoon with the Ministry of Transport affects the agenda.
Transport?
Sorry, the Ministry of Municipal Affairs. Apologies.
So,
Okay.
I would like to address just why the agenda was written, because that was the question from Councillor Router. And I just like to, so this is my first agenda.
Call me Marcus. Yeah, please.
So this is my first agenda, and then talking through with Shauna and the staff, they like to keep the numbers in the order of the agenda numbers in order. This was an oversight because we have to go discuss and then come out of close. And so it was kept in the order that the numbers on the template. So that, to me, it wasn't anything more. I think it needs to be adjusted so that you can discuss whoever is coming forward, and then you can report out to open.
I'm a little confused here. I mean, I think everything looks good up to number 6, which is us moving into closed to discuss events that are likely going to take place in open. So I would propose that we simply strike the closed portion of the meeting and 7, and that we just do it all in open here. That would be my suggestion. I don't know. I'll wait to hear from others.
I would second that.
Okay, so you moved that?
Yeah.
That we,
Yeah, but it's something I'm putting forward.
No, I would second everything in open. Okay, question? All in favor?
I'm fine, yeah.
Yeah, I
Yes.
have nothing that needs to go in closed, so sure, carry on. Makes sense to me.
Okay, all in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Chris?
Okay, motion carried. Okay, next item. So and further to my discussion with the Ministry of Affairs this afternoon, they have in fact offered to,
Sorry,
uh,
sorry, Ken, are we changing the agenda order? Is it not public participation now?
no, I was going to, we were going to make some adjustments, some further adjustments. So my recommendation is that we strike A and B and that we amend item C.
Okay,
And if you'd like some background, I'll give you that background.
when we get there, okay,
So we should have the public participation first though, right? That's in the order of the agenda.
Well, we've got to amend the agenda, subject to councillors agreeing to that.
Oh, so you're, okay, so we're proposing a further amendment, which is the deletion of A and B.
That's correct. And-
Okay, and you're going to bring some discussion on that? Okay.
Yes,
Go ahead.
okay, we have a motion to amend
Okay,
Well,
and then discussion.
so to delete A and B,
Yeah.
You can't delete A and B. I don't think, because in order for us to have, that's what we're here to do, is to elect a chief elections officer and a deputy elections
Okay,
officer.
I was gonna just pass on the discussion with the ministry.
But can you leave those two in there while you do that?
Yeah, well, we can, but I don't think we're going to need to because they've offered support to the current CAO and the deputy. So,
But the legislation is that we have to have
excuse me,
notices.
excuse me, I'm sorry, could we just, I suggest that we go with the orders of the day, which is the agenda. And if we come to something that's not needed, that we could remove it at that time. But that we just go with orders of the day, which would be to follow the agenda at this point.
okay, we can do that. As I said, I'll just preface it by saying the ministry has offered us help during this period. And we've also reached out to Grant McRadu, and that's an alternative as well for some advisory service. But the ministry has offered that they would provide someone to the village and pay for that. So why don't we just go through the resolution? Then the initial resolution was appoint chief election officer. As I previously mentioned, the CAO currently is the chief elections officer, but if we have other alternatives or suggestions, by all means, I think that was one of the suggestions that Karen had was put forth some other names. So I have reached out to the ministry. They are going to put names forward for us, but if councillors have names this evening, by all means.
So I'm a little confused by something you just said again, that you're saying that the chief administrative officer is the chief elections officer in your view at this moment, or?
That's the current status of it, yes.
Well, no, the current status is that we have no chief elections officer, right? We had a chief elections officer who was our acting CAO, but he stepped aside on the 6th or 7th.
so guys, to Michael's suggestion, maybe this is cleaner if we do just go back and follow the agenda. There's all sorts of things going on. Let's have the public participation. And we seem to be discussing whether we're striking something or not without understanding why. Why don't we just follow the agenda, do public participation and get to these points? I think it was Michael or someone suggested earlier.
Yeah, I think that's
All right, and okay, and we'll address agendas at a later time. The gallery, would you have any comments or questions?
I have something to say, but it isn't time yet, is it?
We're
Will be in
moving
a
to that
moment.
right now, yes. But
Yeah, you go first.
Okay. I had a whole spiel when I read the agenda and I thought, pardon me if I'm blunt, I thought this agenda is nuts. I mean, much as what was said that you have it in open and then you go to closed. What we used to do in the last term, we would start the meeting at 6 o'clock with a closed meeting and invite the public in at 7 o'clock. And then it was a natural flow that you could propose something in the closed, come to a decision, and then have your final decision making in the open afterwards. So it's all topsy-turvy, and I thought, you know, what's going on? But thankfully, you hit where I was going to go with it, and that was the ministry. And I think that was an excellent choice. Because the other thing I was concerned about is we've got so many appointments now of people who are connected to elected officials within the community. And I don't feel comfortable with that. And I think it can bring acrimony towards the village because it's a conflict of interest in a sense, or potentially. So I think having an outside elections officer, chief electoral officer, is the wiser way to go. And I think it clears up a multitude of problems. You've covered off a lot other things that I was going to say, so I'll leave it on my paper.
All right, thank you very much for that, Fred.
So I don't have a question, but I have a sort of you could call it a tirade, I suppose. I'm responding to the village update, the last village update, where we were reminded that we should be respectful and kind. And I'm not seeing that from either side. And I think, speaking from my own point of view, the reason we're not being respectful is that we don't see respect from your side. And I'm going to give you a few examples, and I've written them down, otherwise I'll run out of time. The former CAO was fired immediately without cause. Why did not the new mayor and council work with him for a few months to find out the truth about him instead of firing him on the advice of friends, many of whom are now being rewarded with positions? The day he left, one or possibly two councillors even bothered to come to shake his hand and wish him well, while the rest of the staff who had loved and respected him were all in tears, which I witnessed. The mayor's friends were posting pictures of him sitting on the beach in Hawaii. I don't think that shows kindness or respect. During the upheaval, as staff were leaving and everything was in disarray, the remaining staff were left without any direction and were thrown into emotional turmoil. No respect for their feelings was shown. No kindness was shown. The village updates have been biased to imply that the former CFO was incompetent and the village funds were in danger. In one case, we were told that the checks weren't being signed by two people, and that's not even true. The checks have always been signed by two people. I think such disrespect for past staff members is not kind nor respectful. Meetings that I have attended have demonstrated that there has also been a lack of respect for members of council. I was made aware of that at the last meeting I attended when I asked when the new interim CFO had been introduced to councillors. And one councillor stood up and told me that he was meeting Ron Miller for the first time at that meeting. I was astounded. Lastly, while we've been chastised and we should be ashamed of our behavior towards the acting CAO, Mr. Anthony Tobin, the real fault lies with those who, having only known Mr. Tobin for a few weeks, brought in a very highly qualified individual who, having had no municipal experience, I believe, found the job completely overwhelming. And he was not provided the practical help he required and was accustomed to having. That to me demonstrated a total lack of respect and kindness towards him. As I said, respect and kindness works both ways. And the behavior of those of us who believe in truth and justice is a direct result of how you have been conducting yourself so far. Where we go from here, I believe, is up to you.
Okay, thanks, Ms. Dudley. Any comments?
I think
Yeah, I think, sorry, can I just make a comment? In the last meeting, Marcus stood up and said that loudly and clearly. I also admitted I'd never met Ron Miller. It was quieter. I said it in my chair. I just want to be clear that it wasn't just Marcus.
Okay, any comments? Councillor Brown?
My understanding was that Mr. Miller's name was put forward on a list of possible people who could be helpful in a transition should that transition need to occur. And as a result, councillors were asked to reach out to the various individuals, and Mr. Miller joined the Finance Committee as an expert in audit, and extremely credentialed gentleman. And he joined the Finance Committee, and as a result of the final meeting with the former CFO, I believe Mr. Tobin reached out to him and offered him a part-time interim position. Because it became quite apparent that there was a huge amount of work to do in terms of the fact that there was no budget, and that the CFO had stayed on to present a budget to council, and that did not occur. On the final day, there was a meeting for the budget to be provided. The budget was not provided, and as a result, it became evident that there was a real challenge. And I believe Mr. Tobin stepped into took the opportunity to bring someone on board who could assist us in a time of very serious need. So I believe that's how things emerge. That's my understanding. So I believe that that's what led to the urgency of the matter, and there was a huge number of things going on and have continued to go on, which have meant that certain protocols would have not occurred that should have occurred, and that's unfortunate.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Ask a question.
Sorry, we'll just let Councillor.
Just procedural. Do we have some people trying to chime in? Are you keeping an eye on that?
Is the only hand.
Okay, no, not
Okay, before we
join the meeting.
yeah, before we go to tomorrow, Councillor Reuter, any comments?
Yeah, Michael, you've said a number of things. I think we're venturing into territory that would probably be better covered in another meeting. There have been a number of procedural missteps. I agree with that. But Rose, I take your points. Absolutely, to respond directly to what you said. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I'll respond to Rose's, just for the record, Rose, because I know that at times there's been misinformation fed out to the community, and a lot of times there seems to be information probably shared that possibly shouldn't be at the time. But for the record, the investigation, the review of the former CAO, that was initiated in July. And the current council that came in and was elected almost 4 months later was delivered that report, and the recommendations in that report were to move in a different direction. And our council unanimously approved without cause move in a different direction. So we didn't fire anyone, and after the CAO, we moved in a different direction. There was other changes. Pam Rook, she had been looking for a job for weeks and took a job close. Sorry, Rose, just let me finish off. And Pam, she looked for another position closer to home, and she'd been doing that for weeks on end. But as I say, the previous council initiated this review of the CAO and the recommendations that were put forth by the lawyers that they had engaged. And we just assumed that. So I think sometimes there's a misconception that the current council sort of initiated this. We didn't. So that was something that we adopted and took over from the previous council. So as in regards to financial controls, there were some serious issues. And that was one of my platforms was fiscal responsibility. And there was some serious controls that needed to be shored up. And we did that as a council. It took us some time, but with the help of Mr. Miller, we secured those controls.
A point of order. I'm sorry. This discussion has been had before. You know that this is straying into territory we shouldn't be going in now. It's speech making about the alleged lack of financial controls.
Okay, your point is taken.
Which was fully debunked in a prior meeting and yet still continues to go out. And I just will not sit here and hear this. It's inappropriate.
Okay, point taken. Point of order was there. So just let me finish off, Councillor Abbott. So Mr. Miller was introduced to the current council in mid-December in a 16-page report. And that report was passed out and all the councillors had an opportunity to meet with Mr. Miller.
A point of order.
We're encouraged.
That is
so that's inaccurate for the record.
Okay, that is an inaccurate reflection of the record. We were not introduced to Mr. Miller. We had asked the acting CIO at the time to meet with Mr. Miller, never received a reply. I believe Councillors Abbott and myself met Mr. Miller for the first time during that meeting.
Okay, point of order taken, and I'll just respond to that. 16-page report provided to all the councillors and invited all of them to participate. In fact, Mr. Reuter and I were to reach out, but we couldn't connect, unfortunately, because I don't want to get into this back and forth, but we just weren't able to connect. So
okay, so you are going to,
Councillor Abbott.
thank you. I'd like to, thank you. You are going to devolve into some back and forth. It's clear.
Okay.
So try get in the way. First of all, I just need, and I'm not going to start this debate over again because Marcus is trying to move on from it, and I'm going to respect that. But I have to make clear when things that were said that are not true or very inaccurate, I'm sorry, I have to straighten them out. Pam was never going to deliver a budget, Michael. Pam was trying to get utility taxes done. Stuff got in the way. She was a long way from a budget. She gave us a schedule of a budget. It's laid out. We're not following that schedule. We're weeks behind. She was never going to deliver a budget. She's not Superman.
Well, so, we've got the CFO here. If we want to get into that debate, we can ask him, but
no, Ron, sorry, Ken, I'm just trying to correct Michael. He said Pam was going to deliver a budget. She never was. Just a correction. Okay. That's all I want to say. And I just want to keep things accurate.
Okay.
My
response on to
you're going to let me speak?
Dudley.
Am I allowed to speak?
Go ahead, Councillor Abbott.
Thank you.
This is a Q&A though, so we're moving
I know,
on.
but the only reason I'm speaking
I thought you were finished speaking,
The
actually.
only reason I'm speaking is because everyone else is speaking, and I'm only going to speak to what they had to say. That's all. There's many things I'd like to say. I'm only going to speak to what was said. The previous council did CAO reviews for 4 years. We are obligated to do CAO reviews. The idea that we started something in July and we had a recommendation that led to Peter being dismissed is not accurate at all, Ken. And I gave you all those reports in all those minutes.
I read the reports from the legal staff.
That is not an accurate reflection. I'm just going to say that. I'm not going to discuss it with you.
Well, we can agree to disagree. His recommendation was in that report that was handed to the new council. Okay, let's move on to the next, please. The next gallery question.
Tamara had her hand up.
Tamara.
Can you hear me? Can you see me?
Yes.
We can hear you.
Okay.
We can hear you.
I don't know if I have video, so I'll just proceed.
Put your radio on.
I don't know that I can I'm just doing this from my phone, so I don't know that I can do that. Is it fine if I just speak with my
That's-
voice and not do audio?
yes,
All
go
right,
ahead.
thank you so much. So it's a point of information question in regards to the LECFA, Local Election Campaign Financing Act. I know that there is a fine line and a fine balance between too much information and proper disclosure. My question is in regards, is for Mayor Ken Berry, in regards to your Form 4300, in regards to the Local Election Campaign Financing Act, Section 31, regarding your declaration of professional services as a line item, one of the sole line items declared for $7,993. My question is, what professional services
I
were
ask that
provided
this question be
when they
provided
were provided
like
and by whom
appropriately?
were they provided? My concern is that the same person who provided professional services may be the same person who has recently been appointed without council knowledge or approval to a full-time unadvertised village office administrative position. And further, that person may or may not be considered for an election position. And this is,
Tamara, I would ask you to put that in writing to me, because you've already once gone on record and to our former CAO and were corrected. So please put it in writing, send it to me, because what you're doing now is making a statement which is totally incorrect.
no,
And,
it's
you know,
actually, it's not a statement, it's a question, Ken, that you can answer directly.
No.
Was
answer
the
is
person
no.
who was recently hired by the village of, hired by you, not by council
sorry,
approval, but
this-
hired by you,
Sorry.
did that person
Mr.
receive?
J, it's inappropriate to smear and then.
I'm not
call
smearing, I'm
someone to do
asking a
this.
question,
No, it's
a direct question.
unacceptable. No, it's unacceptable.
It's a fair question. It is a fair question.
What I'm going to ask you to do is put it in writing, because again, you know, you've done this once before where you put a narrative out there and then you don't offer up any apology or any response. So I'm sorry.
Just a point of order again. This was posed as a point of information and it's a simple question. There's nothing
I
inappropriate
said
about
no.
it.
I said no.
What do you say no to?
I'm saying no to
her question.
her question.
Well, you can't say no to a question. You have to let the
Well,
speaker pose their
okay.
question, and then if you choose not to answer, that's
Yeah.
your right to do so.
Okay.
But you should let them
I've answered.
complete. You should let them complete their question.
Okay.
How about some order here?
We'll move to the next question. Thank you very much for that.
Okay, I'm just gonna get Allison. Go ahead, Allison.
Thanks, everybody. I just want to quickly build on the comments that Fred Baines made earlier about when you're deliberating on who to appoint as election officers. I agree with Fred that it's really important that when you appoint officers, that they are both impartial and nonpartisan, but also that it's critical that they're perceived to be impartial and nonpartisan. So we always talk in government about the need to both avoid true conflicts of interest and the need to avoid the perception that there could be a conflict of interest. So in Lions Bay's case, just in case you are considering appointing staff, one staff, and I won't name them, but one staff was quite robustly engaged in the election debates. It was kind of clear if the runner-up candidates decide to run again, it was quite clear who that staff person preferred. There were heart emojis, comments like Yahoo when a certain candidate posted their platform. So I just want to, ensure that you're thinking of perceptions, making sure that anybody who's appointed, any average resident would perceive them to be impartial in their role in this. And again, I don't want to imply that this person isn't capable of being impartial, but just that there could be a perception, just given that staff were robustly engaged in the last election. Thanks.
Allison, thanks for those comments. Appreciate that. As I was mentioning earlier, we've reached out to the municipal affairs and they have offered to give us assistance, and they'll also be putting forth some names in that regard. So thank you very much, because we certainly don't want that perception. We'd prefer to have outside independent individuals. So thank
Oh,
you.
that's great. Okay, thanks so much.
Next question. Sorry.
Oh, no, it's okay. Go ahead.
Okay. Sorry, there was a question from the gallery. I think we.
That's okay.
Okay. Any other questions?
I would like to see if I can speak. I've been emailing back Marina back and forth. So I just want to make sure that everybody is aware that the purpose of this meeting is that there's a countdown of 80 days to the election, and the notice of nomination must be posted today.
We're aware.
Yes.
That may or may not be accurate there. I have some further information as to that. So but we can get
Okay.
into that as we move on.
All right, we'll move past the public participation then. And the first item was item A and B, which I had requested that we eliminate those, but I'll put it to the floor for a discussion.
So and your recommendation would be to eliminate those based on conversations you've had. Maybe you could fill us in on that a little bit.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I had conversations with the ministry this afternoon, and they had offered to provide the village with assistance. They offered that they would pay for that assistance as well. But as I mentioned earlier, January 31st, we appointed the chief elections officer, and the CAO later resigned on February 7th, and our CFO stepped into that role. And so as I think Allison has pointed out, we would prefer to have an independent party. We would prefer not to run with Mr. Miller. And so that's why we've reached out to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs. They've said, look, we are willing to step in and help. I think we all acknowledge that we've had a difficult time within our community since the election. And I think we all are in agreement that we'd like to see a more harmony within our community. So I think this offer that the Municipal Affairs has made is worth continued pursuit. So I'll follow up on that and I'll report back to the council. But I think it's something that we can all benefit from.
Could I just say, I think the ministry option is a very good one. I have also spoken to the ministry, including today. I was not aware of any specific offer. Are you suggesting that they're not just going to assist, but also, did I hear you say that they are going to pay for this and provide the chief elections and deputy officials for us?
Sure. Before I get into that, I'd just like to say that we've had challenges in the past with people reaching out, counselors specifically reaching out beyond what's their scope. And I think that we're going to have one point person on this. And as mayor, I think it's my responsibility to reach out to these groups. And so it's making it more challenging if we go piecemeal, or if we go down these roads without having a representative. And look, that's my role. I took on that role as mayor. So it's making things more difficult. And I say this respectfully, it's just making things more challenging. So the ministry did indicate that they would pay. And I said, look, we will follow up after I've had a chance to talk to council and see if they would be in agreement that I could continue to follow up and take the ministry up on that and bring someone in to give us assistance during this by-election period. So all I would ask is that we allow me the opportunity to reach out to them, because when we go from staff members or council members, it just makes it more challenging. Councillor Abbott, sorry, Broughton, you had.
Could I just jump in here? This was directed at, this comment was directed at.
Sorry, Councillor Abbott.
But this.
Broughton had his hand up. I know, but we have to follow protocol. He had his hand up, so.
Yes, Councillor Abbott to
Broughton.
speak. Oh, I thought it was Councillor Abbott.
Sorry, Councillor Abbott, can we let Councillor Broughton speak? He had his hand up and I'll come right back to you. Is that okay?
Yeah, speaking to the protocol, okay. Who could I ask a question of both the mayor and Councillor Ruder? Mr. Ruder or Councillor Ruder, who are you speaking to at the ministry?
I've spoken to a number of people at the ministry, but if you want to let me speak now, I'm going to respond to what the mayor just
okay, no,
which is that comment was obviously directed at me.
Sorry, Marcus.
Yeah.
Michael, I have spoken to the ministry as well. Marcus and I have done so jointly. We've asked the mayor to do that. I will continue to speak to the ministry if I feel we need it and action isn't being taken. I'm sorry, Councillor Reuter's probably going to say it more eloquently than me. So don't keep pointing the finger at him. Thank you.
Yeah,
and I'll keep quiet now.
I think I've mentioned to all of my colleagues here that that I've spoken to the ministry. It's been in an effort to bring a neutral third party into the room to help us function. So far, those overtures have been turned down by my colleagues, which I think is regretful. It would have helped us become more functional, but the ministry is there.
Point of order. We've offered, and I've offered to sit down with you.
That's not a point of order.
So I have offered many times, but
I'm sorry, that's not a point of order. You can correct me after I'm done. So I have brought this point forward multiple times, and the ministry is there to field questions from members of council, and I will freely accept the advice and professional services that they offer. So I am happy to hear that we are bringing the ministry into the room. I am surprised, though, that they have, if I understand you correctly, that they're offering not only to step up and assist and pay, but also the question I had was, are they also going to provide the two appointments and field those as well? Or where are we at on this?
okay, Councillor Abbott, did you have something to add? Sorry, you're on mute, Councillor Abbott.
Sorry, no, sorry, I thought I said what I said earlier. I hope I didn't say it on mute. It wouldn't have helped. I agree with what Councillor Marcus is adding. Councillor, I'm not going to do the councillor thing. What Marcus has just said. Both of us had, as I said, had joint calls with the ministry, purely in an effort to get, someone in the room to help us through this. And you're aware of that. I've asked you to facilitate that. So I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, I think we're all in agreement that we can benefit from the ministry's guidance. So with that.
Okay, just clarity in terms of why we are here today. My understanding is that we're running up against timelines which require us to on January 31st. We moved and seconded that the chief administrative officer is appointed chief election officer, and that accordingly, the date of the by-election must be no later than 80 days from the 31st of January, must fall on a Saturday, and is now corrected to be the 15th day of April 2023. So the bell has been rung, the election is underway, and there are certain steps that we must take to facilitate that. So the chief administrative officer has been appointed. It is the chief election officer has been appointed. The chief administrative officer of our village is established at this point. And the ministry appears to be willing to assist in us moving forward with the election. So what I would ask us to do is look at whatever motions or requirements is needed, the reason why this meeting was called, and to proceed.
Okay. All right, thank you for that. So as pointed out, we've had discussions. The ministry is very much in favor of supporting us. The resolution would be that the council requests the staff assistance as required to post the notice of nomination on February 15th and February 21st at the post office notice board, the village website, and in the special village update. I would also add that the mayor continued discussions with the ministry and report back to council on their interest level to support us. And I understand that other councillors have gone to the ministry. I would ask you that you allow me to continue those conversations that I initiated back in November with the ministry and report back. So do we have a motion for that?
I'm
That you would continue with that, sorry?
Michael, you were saying that we have a chief elections officer?
Yes, we appointed a chief election officer on January 31st.
We did. And that was in the person of our CAO who resigned on the 6th or 7th. So we have no chief elections officer. And I presume that's why we were here this evening.
No, my understanding is that the chief election officer is in the person, is the chief administrative officer of our community, who is currently Mr. Miller.
That's why then do we have on this page here something to appoint a chief elections officer?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Okay, look, the things have developed with the ministry. They've stepped up and they said that they would support us financially on a position, and I think we should take them up on that. So without getting overly complicated in that, I would like your permission to continue that conversation with them. But in the meantime, we want to run in parallel, and because the clock is ticking and we want to make sure we fulfill our requirements. And in amongst that, I anticipate, much like Allison Dudley has suggested, is that the ministry will say, look, here's individuals that we would like you to consider to replace our staff in those positions of CEO, Chief Elected Officer. So that's what I am anticipating will happen. And I think Councillor Reuter and Councillor Abbott, if you've had conversations with the ministry as well, you're likely looking for some independent source and someone to step in. So I think this is all positive, you know. We're all wanting the same thing here. Yep. We're wanting to bring a little bit of order to this. So with that, can I make the motion that you allow me to continue the conversations with the ministry, and that also we continue on and make sure that we post according to the regulations, because the clock's ticking and we don't want to fail on these areas. So that's the resolution, and I can read it. The council requests staff to assist the elections officer as required to post a notice of nomination on February 15th, which is today, and February 21st at the post office notice board, the village website, and the special village update. And the Ministry of Municipal Affairs has said they will support us in this. Bring names forward. I'll come back to the council, and I'm sure that we can agree that the names that they bring forward will be independent and there won't be any conflicts of interest.
so I think Neville wanted to speak.
Neville?
Yeah, that resolution, the way it started out, Ken, sounded like what I was hoping to hear. It morphed into something completely different. It's way too convoluted. If we're suggesting that the resolution is that we continue with Ron Miller, let's use a name, not titles and confusion how they got titles, as the Chief Elections Officer, my answer is no. Let's get the ministry in here sooner rather than later. Let's get that independent person. Let's not make this election potentially the flawed situation that Alison Dudley very aptly explained to us earlier. The last thing we want is to have an election and to someone go back to tonight or next week or tomorrow and have a legitimate claim. We do this all over again and we all look terrible. I don't think this hard line I know it's a hard line. I know the 80 days clock is ticking. I think we can work with the ministry. We can get some forgiveness as long as we find a way to mitigate our problems, accelerate the schedule and get back on track. That's what I think we need to do. So I would vote no to that. As to the suggestion that you continue to work with them, absolutely. Happy for you to keep working with them. But I think we all need to work with them. So let's get them in a room and talk to all four of us and we'll get some progress. And we can do that sooner rather than later.
Okay, so
Can I jump in here? I would agree with that. The conversations that I had with the ministry today were that they would be willing to come into the room and speak with all of us as a council. I think that would be the most collaborative and open way to move forward. There is also the suggestion that's been made to me by the person. I reached out to this person. This was the proposal that was brought to us by Anthony back when we were discussing having somebody run this by-election. And this is a professional in the field. And she indicated that there may be the possibility to claw back on the clock, which would be helpful to us. It's something we could explore. I'm going to be speaking with her about this further tomorrow. She sounds very well credentialed. You all had the paperwork from her. Her name is Lori Darkus. And I think the important thing is to bring some order and proper steps into this. The public trust in any election has to be paramount, and the impartiality is something we're all talking about here, but also that the steps are performed properly. This is something that was also mentioned to me by the ministry, is that we need to do it by the book. We don't want to find ourselves in a situation where it is then open to legal challenge, or worse yet, would have to be redone. So I would say, let's bring the ministry into the room with all of us and discuss the steps forward and do this all together as a council and move forward that way. And they may well have recommendations as to other professionals who can assist us. And I'll bring some further information forward from Lori, because I'll be speaking with her tomorrow.
Can I make a suggestion? Because this has been something that, we've had the CAO put out the notice that we kind of have to have some order to it. So I appreciate your offer, but I'm already speaking with the ministry. If you'll allow the mayor to reach out and then report back to council, I think that's a more orderly process and allows us that we're not circumventing the reporting and getting in each other's way.
I don't see how that would circumvent anything. I think if I understood Neville correctly, he would like us to do this as a council. I support that. And I think that we can't move forward simply procedurally speaking on the posting of any dates until we have figured out those first steps. And those are what the ministry would assist us with. So I think we need to do this together as a council. We need to work with each other in this room and bring the ministry in and take that as a first step. I think that's important.
Okay. Councillor Broughton.
I think we need to follow the law. The appointments have been legally made and we need to follow those. The election law is very, very specific and we need to follow that. Certainly we want to make every effort to ensure that there is no perception of not being impartial. And so, and I believe that will occur. But I do ask that we meet the timelines, that we follow the law as it's laid out for us. That I believe that we currently do have a chief election officer in place. My understanding is that there is no requirement for a deputy election officer, the deputy chief election officer. So I would suggest that item B be withdrawn. That the chief election officer can request the assistance that they require to move the election forward. In this case, I would suggest that the current chief election officer would reach out potentially to an impartial ministry representative or an impartial other representative, such as the person who we got the $30,000 or $35,000 quote from. The goal of council was to find an alternate, more cost-effective way of proceeding. But so I would ask that we move forward, following the regulations, following the timelines, which are very, very specific, very, very tight, and that the current chief election officer reach out and pass over responsibility to either a ministry representative or a representative that is acceptable to all of council.
Okay, I think we've had good discussion. I'll pose the motion, which is allow staff to post a notice of nomination on February 15th and again February 21st at the post office notice board website, Special Village of Lions Bay update. I'll make that motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No,
Those opposed?
I'm opposed.
Councillor Abbott? Sorry, we can't hear you.
Yep, sorry, the mute came on. I got up to get some water.
Okay,
No, I'm opposed to it.
okay, all right. Motion defeated to publish the election as stipulated in the regulations. Okay, I'll be following up with the ministry tomorrow. I'll let them know that council wasn't able to come to a resolution on this and continue to reach out for their assistance, and I'm sure they'll have some suggestions. So
Can I?
okay, item number.
Can I propose an alternate motion here, which would be a motion to bring the ministry to assist us in moving forward?
We've already done that. I'm moving to do. I've been in discussions with them.
Yeah, I understand. We've had the discussion, so I'm just
Yeah.
going to propose this, is that we bring the ministry in to the room to assist council in moving forward as swiftly as possible with this matter, and that we schedule a meeting between council and the ministry as soon as possible so that we can move this forward. That would be the motion I put forward.
Okay, a second.
I'll second that.
Discussion.
I'm unclear on how that's different from what we're doing at this point.
What we're doing is we're inviting the ministry in. They both Ken and myself and Neville have been in discussions at different times with the ministry. Ken's indicated they're willing to help. My proposal is that we bring the ministry into the room as soon as possible to assist us in this matter and to move forward with it.
Okay, so the resolution, we are in discussions with them right now. I mentioned that I've had that discussion back in November, repeatedly, also again this afternoon. So I think we're on the same page on that. I think what the resolution that you're putting in is you're stipulating that we all have to be in the room, as opposed to the mayor reaching out, initiating the conversation, bringing them back into the village to sit down with us, which is what they've offered. So I think we're all agreeing to the same thing.
We are in agreement that we want the ministry. I'm suggesting that we bring them into the room.
This is
with
your
council.
second time to speak too, just so
Yeah,
you know.
I'm just-
We're gonna go around the room.
I'm just clarifying what you've said, which is that the motion is to bring the ministry in to assist us in this matter as soon as is possible with all of council involved so that we can get this business done and not be out of order. There are some possibilities for a ministerial order to extend the 80 days or to reset the clock, but I'm proposing that we bring the ministry in to have a discussion with all of us.
Okay,
That's
I
the
think,
motion.
and we're talking exactly the same thing. I'll amend the motion to say the mayor continues to follow up, to reach out, follow up on November discussions. Again, the discussion I had with them this afternoon and the discussion that we said we would have tomorrow. And the information that I'll be reporting back is that council had turned down the resolution to do the filings on the dates. I'll initiate that conversation. I'll ask them to come in the village. I'm sure they're going to put forward. They said specifically, they don't tell us what to do, but they offer to help. So
Yes.
we don't need a resolution for that, but if you want it amended to allow me to do my job, which is reaching out to them, then I'm happy with that. Councillor Adam.
Can I comment, just a couple of quick comments? First of all, telling the ministry that we didn't post the nomination. Let's just be clear. The reason we couldn't post the nomination is because we didn't pass the resolution to appoint Ron Miller as Chief Elections Officer, as is on the agenda package. It wasn't called because we weren't going to do it. We had to do that first. So that's why we couldn't have done it. Let's just be clear. We're not trying to stop an election here. We're trying to go through the right process. I don't believe we have a Chief Elections Officer. Secondly, onto this latest resolution that Marcus put forward, Ken, you keep saying you've been speaking to them since November. I would argue that we didn't get here if Marcus and I had not sent an email to them, and we sent an email to you as well, trying to push this issue. That's a fact in my mind. So let us all stay involved. Let's get this done soon, in days, not months. We're not going back to what happened in November. So I like Marcus's resolution. Let's get on with it. As soon as possible, the ministry and all four of us in a room.
Okay, Marcus, any other comment, last comment?
No, Michael, I'll reserve that. Michael wants to make it, but that's the resolution that I'm putting forward, to bring them into the room and that we move forward as expeditiously as possible. We want to get this done and we want to do it right.
Well, and we're on the same page again. What I'm asking is that we amend that so that I can reach out to them today, or sorry, tomorrow. And
can we call the question on Marcus's resolution?
Were you amending, Ken?
I'm amending, yes.
What is the amendment on?
The amendment is for the mayor to be able to reach out to the ministry tomorrow and follow up my conversations that I had with them today, where they offered to provide assistance and actually fund it on behalf of the ministry for the village of Lions Bay. So I believe we all want the same thing here.
We do.
So how does that amendment? Do we have, okay, I made the amendment. Do we have a second?
I'll second the amendment.
Okay, all in favor?
Can I make an amendment to your amendment? And finish that statement with view to having a meeting with all four of us and the ministry as soon as possible, as in days.
I think that's great. Okay, that's an amendment to the amendment. Do we have a second?
So
All in favor?
can I just call I just want to hear.
I'm calling the question.
Well, it's unclear. I'm sorry, there's a lack of clarity here. The motion is to move forward with a meeting with the ministry as soon as possible to bring them into the room to assist all of council. The amendment is to that the mayor will reach out and facilitate this, and with a view to bringing the ministry in to discuss this with all of us. Are we clear?
The mayor will be reaching out to him tomorrow.
Yes.
To follow up on my conversation with them today. I will say that we would all like to get together and have a conversation, and I'll invite them back to the village or wherever whether it's a Zoom call. So I think we're on the same page on that. Do we have a second on that?
So that includes Neville's amendment that your effort will be to bring them into the room. Your reaching out to them will be at a reach out in effect.
I'm gonna
To bring them, can I just finish, please? To bring them into the room as soon as possible to discuss all this with council as a whole. Is that correct?
My discussion will follow up on my discussion that I had today, where they are offering to fund it. Okay, so I am allowed to, the call is not gonna be, we want you to show up and talk to all 4 councillors. That I'm not gonna prohibit the conversation that I had today and continue it on. And that is to have them provide some assistance and fund it. And then I will say, please, can we get all of the councillors online so that we can sit in a room together?
I just don't understand. We seem to be stuck, and the sticking point is this, is that you seem to want to have a conversation with them.
No, I'm trying to.
Okay, let me please
conversation.
finish. Let me please finish. That you seem to insist that you want to have a conversation with them as opposed to that conversation happening with all of council. That's all we're asking.
No, that's
for.
not what I'm saying at all. Okay, I'm asking for a little bit of order to this. I'm asking as mayor to allow me to reach out.
Yes.
And initiate those conversations.
And I believe that
Okay.
the consensus is that you will reach out, and the point of the reach out will be to get them into the rooms that we can all benefit from their presence and move this forward as soon as possible. That would be the.
That's
purpose
what
of
we're
your reach
doing.
out.
Okay,
My understanding is that you are following up on your discussion today of their offer to provide assistance in this process, in the process of the election, that would include resolving how we're going to proceed with the election, and would also involve potentially facilitating the discussion around that. So it's sort of a two-pronged.
Okay.
I'm hearing two different things.
Yeah, you need,
Okay,
Michael.
if this is clarifying, please go ahead.
It's not clarifying. You went back to where Ken started. That was defeated. Then there was an amendment. Then I made an amendment on the amendment. The point that Marcus is making, I'm making, is the outcome of the conversation has only one thing we want. We want them to come meet with us. Not a caveat if you pay for it or if you don't, or if it's in my interest. We want to meet with them, all 4 of us. That's what we want.
Okay, before we vote, I'll just say my last piece is, this is a prime example of why we need a by-election. We really have a difficult time coming to a consensus, and with the help of the ministry, we're going to hopefully move this election forward. And this will break this stalemate that we have within our village, which is hampering our ability to carry on business, the real business of the village. So let's have a all in favor of the motion as amended twice. All in favor.
I'm unclear. The amendment.
I'm unclear as well.
Is.
So.
Okay, then I'll repeat it then, and perhaps because I'll be the one reaching out. I am going to reach out to the municipality, the municipal affairs tomorrow. I'm following up on my conversations that I've had with them in the past in November and again today. And they've said that they would support the village with financial assistance in the form of some assistance to come in and help out, to help our management and advisory of our CAO and staff. Okay, I'm going to touch base with them. I'm going to say, look, we want to move forward with your offer to help us, but can you meet with all the councillors together and walk through this and answer questions? That can't be that difficult, can it?
Well, we're now talking about something else, it seems to me, than the by-election. How about this? It is that you reach out to them and ask them to meet with us as a council as soon as is humanly possible to assist us in the matter of this by-election. That's the simple motion.
You know what? That falls right in line with, let the mayor do his job. Yes, I agree with that. So do we have a resolution for the mayor to reach out to the municipal affairs, follow up on the conversations that I had? Okay, and then get them in a room with the rest of the counselors.
It's simpler than that. The motion is that the mayor reaches out to the ministry to ask them to show up and
They
join
may
us.
not show up. They don't do the work for us. They've
No,
offered.
that they will show up for a meeting with all of council to assist us in moving this by-election forward.
I'll ask them to
I
come
will
and meet
second
with
that.
council.
I will second that. Please call the question. I will second that.
Okay,
Please call the question.
okay. All in favor of the mayor initiating the conversation, following
No,
up?
I will second Marcus's resolution, which is the one on the table that's gone round and round in circles. Please call that question, and then if there's something else, we'll do something else. Marcus is simply asking, you call the ministry.
Okay,
no
repeat it
caveats.
again, just,
The motion
We're
is
struggling to agree here.
I think that's what it is.
okay, so it's simple. We want to get them in the room, okay? So the motion is that the mayor reach out to the ministry to bring them into the room to meet with all of council as soon as is possible to assist us in the matter of the by-election.
I will second that. Please call the question.
Fine with that.
Yeah, that's fine.
I'm fine with that. All in favor?
Question?
Yes,
Yes?
Okay, motion carried.
thank you.
All right. Okay. We'll move to the public comments.
Okay, I'm
Questions.
sorry, are we,
Sorry.
so we have not approved the publication
That was defeated.
of the dates.
That's defeated.
Is it possible to reconsider that? I think it's important that we move ahead with the election dates. And that we do this as a placeholder, if nothing else.
Well,
I mean,
that's,
if it has to be,
that was the intention, but if it's, would you like to make another motion then?
well, I would be moving a motion that's been
Okay.
defeated.
So in practical purposes, what happens is when I reach out to the municipal affairs, I'll be letting them know that we've defeated a motion to fulfill other requirements to post these notices. And that's going to determine how they react to this news, because
And
they will take,
So-
they will.
I'm disappointed that we're not following, I
Sorry.
don't believe we're following the law, and I believe that that is what we should be doing.
And then they will step in is what my understanding. So,
I think
Can I
Neville's
just-
trying to-
one
Yeah.
request, when you tell them that we defeated that motion, will you please tell them we never voted on the resolution to appoint a CEO, because that is pertinent to why we voted no. That's all. All right.
I'll be explaining to them that we have a CFO that stepped into the role of CAO on February 7th. And I'll let them make their conclusions, but we've defeated this. They're going to be stepping in some manner to help out the village, because a by-election is something that obviously we can see is needed.
My understanding is that the appointment of the CFO and the subsequent assumption of his assuming the CAO position has been confirmed, is legally confirmed. It follows the
How's that?
contracts and the contractual acts. So my understanding is that we're moving forward. So anyway, let's.
Okay, I think we'll move on. We'll go right to public questions. Is there any questions from the gallery?
We don't actually have anything in the agenda as to public questions, but I think we should.
Yeah, we do have,
Yes, we do.
we do have public questions,
Yes, we
number
do.
5.
Number 5.
Yeah,
Hi, yeah, Craig. I just want someone to confirm that Mr. Miller was in fact appointed by council. If Mr. Tobin assumed all of the powers and duties of the former CAO, the CAO's job description indicates that the CAO must recommend or ask council, recommend to appoint CFO. And I don't see that anywhere that that appointment actually took place. And then he was not having to be appointed to take over the CAO's duties? Those are my questions.
Good question.
Okay,
Just, I'd like to respond to that.
yeah, go ahead.
That is correct, that the matter of the CFO never did come to council for appointment, which I believe it should have, and that we find ourselves in a bizarre position, and I've had discussions with the CFO on this matter, is that, you know, it would have behooved our previous CAO to bring this before council, but he chose not to. And moreover, that this hiring occurred during a hiring freeze. The hiring allegedly occurred on the 19th of January. There was a hiring freeze in place until the 4th of February, which calls into question whether the CFO even is the CFO and therefore can even become, by virtue of contract, CAO, much less CEO, and much less go forth and hire further people into staffing positions. So it's a conundrum, and I take your points there. I don't see how procedurally any of this is correct.
Okay, we're gonna allow one comment for each counselor and mayor. Go ahead, Counselor Bowden.
I think it's really dangerous to put out incorrect information. The hiring freeze was rescinded on, I believe, December the 8th.
It was not. It was
Let him
not.
finish speaking. You had your opportunity.
December the 8th, those minutes have been provided to all of council.
They have not.
So that it's,
I welcome.
if we're going to say he
Okay.
said, she said, I mean, this is just
Allow him to finish his comments,
extraordinary.
Counselor Ryder.
It's really quite extraordinary. Anyway, there's a series of motions, 4 motions in a particular meeting. All the other motions have been accepted by the entirety of council, with one that Councillor Reuters doesn't seem to be willing to accept.
Show me the minutes.
Anyway.
Show me the minutes. Show the.
Okay, allow him to
I've
finish.
provided them to you.
Allow him to finish. Okay, Counselor
Excuse
Bowden.
me,
any-
pardon me, I'm sorry. Show me the minutes.
Yep.
They have been provided to you.
No, they have not.
They have been provided to you.
They have never been
Emailed
provided.
to you. They've been emailed to you.
Okay.
Okay, Counselor Abbott,
Okay, for me, it's kind of simple.
we're allowing one response to this question for each
One
council.
response. For me, it's kind of simple. There's a pretty easy way to go from A to B, and that's the direct route. You want to appoint someone, and the community charter says council does it, bring it to council, we'll appoint the person. This long circuitous route of someone appointed and reading the contract, it doesn't wash for me. There's an easy way to do it. Let's do it the proper way. As to Marcus's and Michael's debate about this resolution to lift the hiring freeze was put in place in an open meeting. There was never an open meeting resolution to lift it. There might have been a discussion in a closed meeting when we appointed the CAO that did not rescind the decision. There's a correct way to do it. We do it properly, or stop debating about it. End of story.
Okay. All right, can I comment then? Look, we're all here to do the best for the village, and I think the semantics and rules for thee but not for me don't cut it. You mentioned that in a closed meeting the hiring freeze was lifted, and that was evident by the hiring of the CAO, the hiring of the fire chief. So you can't have it both ways. I mean, we're trying to do the best for the village. We're trying not to shoot ourselves in the foot. Okay, so when the former CAO when we moved in a different direction, Pam Rook took over his agreement, and that was right in the former CFO's agreement. And the current CFO has acquired that same rights in his agreement to move into the CAO position, and thankfully for the village that he's done that and he's accepted it. He could have walked So I think, again, we have to consider what's in the best interest of the village. So please, let's try to work together on these things. And I'm sure that when the ministry comes, perhaps they'll offer a little bit of guidance and bridge the gap that we're seeing. Okay,
Okay, so,
other questions, please.
Yeah.
okay,
Penny Nelson.
Ken, I'd just like to comment on your last statement about rules and such. That's why Robert's rules exists. Robert's rules applies to everybody, and I mean everybody. And this is why if a resolution is passed in an open meeting, it has to be rescinded in an open meeting. And speaking for someone who only sees the open meetings, it never happened. Thank you.
Okay, next question.
Neville. Go ahead, Neville.
Neville.
no,
you got your
okay,
hand
go-
up. Okay,
sorry, carry on to the public. I'll put my hand
all
down.
right. Anybody in the gallery? No, okay. With that, we've struck the closed meeting. Motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second,
I'll second
Yes,
that.
all in favor?
Yes.
Motion
Yes.
carried. Thank
thank
you.
you. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Neville.
Good night.
So no closed?
No.
Done.
We're done.